Picture this. You are standing on a desolate, gray landscape.
Oh yeah, total emptiness.
Exactly. There is no wind, no sound at all, just the endless expanse of lunar dust stretching out to the horizon under this pitch-black sky.
Right.
And bounding across that dust is a heavy-duty buggy. It's rugged, industrial, like clearly built for harsh environments. And sitting up front are two astronauts in full high-tech gear.
Mm-hmm.
But the buggy isn't moving because of a combustion engine or, I don't know, a high-capacity solar battery.
Mm-hmm.
No, it is being pulled by horses.
And not just any horses either. We're
Right.
talking about two massive, muscular, white draft horses, like the exact kind of animals you'd expect to see pulling a plow in some 19th century oil painting.
Yeah, exactly.
Except these two, they're wearing custom-fitted, fully pressurized spacesuits.
It's just wild to even think about.
It really is. They have these massive bubble-like helmets over their heads, and they're literally pulling a high-tech chariot across the Sea of Tranquility.
It sounds like a glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah.
You know, you have the ultimate symbol of advanced, futuristic human achievement.
The lunar colony.
Yeah, a lunar colony. And it's being powered by the absolute ultimate symbol of traditional agrarian labor. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, we definitely need to.
Because this image isn't just for shock value. It's actually the cover art for John Karpiscak's hard science fiction book, Horse Tales from the Moon.
Right.
And it represents this deeply researched, heavily documented, but somehow completely overlooked chapter in the history we are diving into today.
Yeah, and our mission for today's deep dive is to explore that previously unreported, really untold history of Lunar Colony 3. We are going to examine how an improvised, highly unorthodox engineering solution completely reshaped humanity's expansion into space.
It really did.
And we're looking at the quiet, just deeply necessary partnerships that were forged between humans and animals in an environment that was violently hostile to both of them.
And for you listening right now, especially if you love bypassing the dry, sanitized official records to get to the messy, surprising reality of how things actually work.
A real story.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real story. This deep dive is your ultimate shortcut. We are skipping the bureaucratic spreadsheets of space colonization and getting right into the lunar regolith to figure out how this actually functioned.
So we should probably start by tackling the glaring logistical question here.
Yeah, the big one.
The year is 2170. Lunar Colony 3 is actively being constructed.
Right.
Humanity already has the technological capability to cross the void of space and build these sprawling, pressurized habitats on a dead rock.
Which, I mean, that makes the central premise sound insane. How did the most advanced space pioneers in human history end up relying on farm animals?
It seems so backward.
It's like having a cutting-edge supercomputer but needing to use an abacus because the power went out.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, blowing a tire on a state-of-the-art Mars rover and realizing the only way back to base is to strap yourself to a team of sled dogs.
That's a great way to put it.
You are mixing apex technology with Paleolithic survival.
Well, the thing to remember is that bringing horses to the moon was never, ever part of a grand, sweeping design for lunar colonization.
Right, it wasn't Plan A.
Not at all. No one at the space agency drafted a 10-year plan involving equine astronauts. Karpiscak's work makes it super clear that this was pure desperation.
Just a reaction to a crisis.
Exactly. The agency originally framed this as a temporary stopgap solution to a catastrophic construction bottleneck.
So let's look at the mechanics of that bottleneck, because I think we tend to view progress, especially in space exploration, as this straight upward sloping line.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you invent a rover, then you invent a better rover, then you invent a fully autonomous construction drone. We just assume the technology keeps compounding perfectly.
But reality doesn't care about a neat timeline.
Right, especially the reality of building a colony in a harsh environment. Things break.
Yeah, and the lunar environment is uniquely abrasive. I mean, the regolith there, it isn't like sand on Earth.
Because it hasn't been smoothed down.
Exactly. Earth's sand is smoothed by water and wind over billions of years. Lunar dust is essentially microscopic, jagged shards of glass.
Wow.
And it gets into every single joint, every gear, every hydraulic seal of those multi-billion-dollar construction drones.
So they were just failing.
Yeah, they were experiencing massive cascading mechanical failures. And when you're faced with a habitat construction delay on the moon, You don't have the luxury of waiting 6 months for a replacement actuator to ship from Earth.
No, you need raw, reliable, adaptable power right then. You need heavy hauling capabilities that can navigate unpredictable terrain without their motherboards frying.
Right.
And biologically speaking, a draft horse is just a phenomenally efficient engine.
What's fascinating here is when you think about the biological advantages over a machine in this specific context.
Like what?
Well, a horse doesn't need computer chips that can be irradiated by solar flares, for one. It navigates autonomously. It responds to voice commands and physical cues. And think about this. If a horse suffers a minor tear in a muscle or gets a scrape,
It heals itself.
yes, its body repairs itself over a few days using nothing but caloric intake.
That's amazing.
But if a rover snaps an axle, it is a useless piece of metal until a human physically fabricates and replaces the part.
So this temporary fix, of importing raw horsepower, it completely reshaped how construction and exploration were carried out on Lunar Colony 3.
It really did.
Just shows that the best engineering solution isn't always the most technologically advanced one. Sometimes it's just the most adaptable.
Which challenges our entire narrative of how we conquer new frontiers. We always assume we will out-innovate nature, but in this case, we had to retreat to biological reliability.
Wait, hold on though. I have a question.
Sure.
If draft horses were saving multi-billion-dollar construction projects, how is this not on the first page of every space history book?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because space agencies document absolutely everything. They log, like, the exact caloric intake of astronauts. They track every single screw used in a rover. You can't just, lose a team of 2,000-pound space horses in a filing cabinet.
You wouldn't think so, no.
So why am I only hearing about this in a collection called Untold Tales?
Well, that gap in the historical record, it isn't a malicious cover-up. It's actually a byproduct of how institutional history is curated.
Okay, boogie me.
Official records in high-stakes environments, they're designed to log milestones, metrics, and major achievements. So they write down that Sector 4 of the Habitat Module was successfully completed on schedule.
Right. They don't write down that it was completed on schedule because a horse named Buster dragged the solar panels across a crater when the automated hauler died.
Exactly. The official manifests basically erased Buster.
Wow.
And if it weren't for the people who were actually holding his reins, we would never know about him at all.
Which brings us to Alicia Collins. She was a geologist who was right there in the dirt during those early, really chaotic days.
She is honestly the perfect lens for this narrative. Because Alicia wasn't a historian. She wasn't a PR liaison for the colony.
He was doing the actual work.
Right. She was a scientist dealing with the raw daily reality of the program. So fast forward a few years, she has returned to Earth. She's teaching at a university, and her work on Colony 3 is already considered part of standard engineering history. Then she gets a media request. But not from a science journal.
No.
It's from a sports writer.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Because this sports writer covers elite athletes.
Yeah.
So he approaches Alicia thinking this is going to be a straightforward piece about physical performance. He basically views the draft horses like Olympic decathletes.
He wants the stats.
Exactly. He asks about VO2 max, muscle atrophy and low gravity, and how you train the fast-twitch muscle fibers of a lunar horse.
Yeah.
He's asking purely mechanical process questions.
But those mechanical questions end up acting as a catalyst for her.
Oh.
They crack the facade of that sanitized official history. Instead of just rattling off a training manual summary or, giving him spreadsheet data on caloric output, Alicia finds herself recalling the strange, the difficult, and the highly emotional events that happened during the program.
The floodgates just open.
Totally.
Because when you are rushing to build humanity's future beyond Earth, you are hyper-focused on survival. You don't have the bandwidth to document the bizarre reality of your day-to-day life.
You're just trying to make it to tomorrow.
Right. So the historical records inherently erase the messy, lived experience of progress. And Alicia's accounts to this sports writer reveal what Karpiscak calls the quiet partnerships between humans and animals in a world never meant for either.
That phrase, a world never meant for either, it carries so much weight when you look at the lunar environment.
Yeah.
I mean, the moon is a vacuum. It is a sterile, cold, completely hostile environment that actively rejects biology.
Everything around you is synthetic.
Everything. Metal, glass, processed air, dehydrated food. You are constantly surrounded by humming machinery reminding you that if the power stops, you die.
It's terrifying. And then into that incredibly sterile, high-stress environment, you introduce a living, breathing, warm animal.
A massive one, too.
Yeah.
A massive biological creature with its own personality, its own moods, its own heartbeat. It completely changes the psychological dynamic of survival.
It really does. The astronauts weren't just maintaining equipment anymore.
Right.
Like when a rover breaks, you might be frustrated, but you aren't emotionally compromised. But when a living partner is struggling in a harsh environment, it taps into a deeply human caretaking instinct.
You want to protect it.
Absolutely. The grounding presence of nature in a place with absolutely no nature proved to be just as vital for the colonists' mental health as the physical horsepower was for the construction timeline.
But, I mean, acknowledging that psychological benefit is one thing. Solving the biomechanical nightmare of keeping these animals alive and functioning is an entirely different level of engineering.
It's a massive challenge.
You really have to look at the physics and biology of actually putting a draft horse in a spacesuit.
Let's get into the gravity of the situation, literally.
Yes, please.
Adapting these massive animals to 1/6 gravity was arguably the biggest hurdle Alicia and her team faced. A draft horse on Earth weighs upwards of 2,000 pounds.
They are huge.
Right. And their entire musculoskeletal system, their cardiovascular system, their spatial awareness, all of it has evolved over millions of years to operate under Earth's specific gravitational pull.
Okay, so you put that animal on the moon, and it effectively weighs about 330 pounds.
Which is nothing for them.
Right. But it retains all of its earthbound muscle mass and kinetic power. So if a horse bounds forward with Earth-level force and lunar
It
gravity,
even launches itself.
it just flies.
Exactly. The potential for catastrophic injury is just astronomical. Because a horse doesn't understand orbital mechanics.
No, of course not.
It just knows how to push off the ground.
So you'd essentially have a flying draft horse inside a pressurized suit. And speaking of those suits, how do you even build one for a horse? Karpiscak details this incredibly well in the book. It wasn't just about giving them oxygen, right?
No, not at all.
It was a massive problem of thermoregulation.
This is a critical engineering detail. Horses generate massive amounts of metabolic heat, especially when they are doing heavy hauling.
Right.
On Earth, they sweat to cool down, and the ambient air just carries the heat away. But in the vacuum of space, there is no air to dissipate that heat.
Oh, wow.
So a pressurized spacesuit would essentially act as a giant thermos.
So if they didn't design a highly advanced liquid cooling garment for the horses, kind of similar to what astronauts wear, but scaled up massively,
The animals would literally cook themselves from the inside out within 20 minutes of exertion.
that is horrifying.
It is. They had to weave miles of cooling tubes through the fabric touching the horse's skin.
Just to keep them alive while they worked. And then there's the waste management. You have a 2,000-pound animal processing food and water inside a sealed, pressurized environment.
Yeah, the environmental control systems had to be incredibly robust.
I can imagine.
They needed these custom vacuums and chemical scrubbers to instantly pull away waste and filter the ammonia from the suit's atmosphere.
Because if the ammonia built up,
It would blind the animal or it would degrade the suit's internal seals.
it's just one peril after another. And consider the sensory deprivation and confusion. Like, you are an instinct-driven prey animal.
Right.
You suddenly weigh nothing, you are strapped into a heavy, rigid suit, and you have a massive bubble helmet over your head. That helmet completely distorts your peripheral vision, which, by the way, is a horse's primary defense mechanism for spotting predators.
Not to mention the acoustics.
Oh, yeah.
Inside that helmet, there is no ambient sound. No wind, no birds, no familiar footsteps of the herd.
Just silence.
Worse than silence. Just the terrifyingly loud mechanical hum of the suit's oxygen pumps, the rushing of liquid through the cooling garment we talked about, and the amplified sound of your own breathing.
The training required to keep an animal from panicking under those conditions is just a monumental achievement in behavioral science.
It really is.
And Alicia's team had to figure this out on the fly. They were employing rapidly improvised positions because they had a construction deadline bearing down on them. They didn't have years to run simulations in a lab.
Karpiscak actually shares a specific story from Alicia about Buster the horse that perfectly captures this reality.
Oh, the micrometeorite story.
Yes. They were out near the edge of a crater, hauling this massive structural beam, when a micrometeorite pinged off Buster's helmet.
Just out of nowhere.
Right. It wasn't enough to breach the glass, thankfully, but the sound and the sudden impact completely terrified the animal.
And on Earth, a spooked horse might just rear up and bolt. But on the moon, rearing up could send the animal tumbling backward in low gravity.
Which is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, potentially puncturing the suit on a jagged rock or snapping a leg. The margin for error was effectively zero,
Because if the suit breaches, the horse dies.
instantly.
And if the horse panics and kicks a vital piece of habitat infrastructure, the humans die.
So in that moment with Buster, the astronaut handling him didn't even have time to use the radio comms built into the suit. Instead, the astronaut literally pressed their own helmet directly against the horse's helmet.
It's such a brilliant improvisation.
It really is. They used bone-conducted sound, just humming and speaking calmly, so the physical vibration transferred through the glass and fiberglass directly to the horse's jaw and ears.
That physical vibratory connection grounded the animal and stopped a disaster.
Wow.
And that anecdote just perfectly underscores the peril of building a colony on the moon. This wasn't some whimsical, light-hearted experiment. It was a high-stakes environment where survival hinged on a human improvising a primitive acoustic connection with a terrified animal.
The success of Colony 3 really rested on these countless small, precarious moments. Moments of a geologist calming a panicked draft horse using bone conduction. Moments of astronauts jury-rigging a cooling harness because the primary pump clogged with lunar dust. These are the details that history overlooks because they don't fit neatly into a timeline of technological triumph.
It really reframes how you look at that cover image of the book, doesn't it?
Completely.
At first glance, you just see the wild contrast, the sleek space suits paired with the ancient power of a draft horse.
But when you understand the context, you see the tension. You see the sheer willpower it took to make that buggy move across the regolith. You see the extreme adaptability required of both species.
Absolutely.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out and look at the untold tales of the Lunar Horse program, what is the core takeaway for us?
Well, I think it fundamentally shatters the illusion that our future in space is going to be clean, sterile, and perfectly algorithmic.
Yes. The story of Lunar Colony 3 proves that humanity's expansion wasn't just built on rocket fuel, orbital mechanics, and flawless machines executing perfect code.
It was messy.
It was built on messy improvisation. It was built on unexpected, desperately needed human-animal bonds. It was built on duct tape fixes and all those small, undocumented struggles that just fall between the cracks of the official reports.
And from an analytical perspective, this reminds us of what true critical thinking actually requires.
Which is?
Well, if you only read the official reports, you only get a fraction of the truth. True understanding means looking past the major recorded achievements. It means seeking out the stopgap solutions that actually drove progress forward. Progress is just never as clean as the history books pretend it is.
It really makes you wonder what else is missing from the archives of human achievement, just waiting for a curious sports writer to ask the right question.
Seriously.
But there's one final lingering thought I want to leave you with today, something for you to really mull over long after we wrap up.
Okay, lay it on us.
We talked extensively about how these massive Earth animals had to radically adapt their instincts, their muscles, and their minds to survive and work in 1/6 gravity.
Right, they're strangers in a strange land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what happens if the program continued? What happens when those draft horses inevitably have foals that are actually born on the moon?
Oh, wow. That is a fascinating biological question.
Right.
Because a foal born into 1/6 gravity wouldn't have Earth-dense muscles to unlearn.
Exactly.
Its cardiovascular system wouldn't have to fight the heavy pull of an Earth field to pump blood.
Its entire neurological and skeletal development would be shaped from birth by the moon. The way it walks, the way it jumps, the way it processes spatial awareness would be completely alien to an Earth horse.
It would be a completely different animal.
So would that next generation even recognize Earth as home? Or would their bodies and minds be so uniquely adapted to the lunar environment that they effectively become the first truly alien species of our own creation?